Hi and welcome to this video. Today I'm going to be talking about chapter 7 from the book Economyths by David Orrell. In this chapter, Orrell looks at whether or not the economy is truly equal and fair and equally beneficial to everybody in the economy, or whether it is actually unfair and disproportionately benefits the wealthy, leaving the rest of society behind. So without further ado, let's get on to the video. For a very long time, mainstream economics has been pushing this idea that markets are equal and that they are fair through models such as the efficient market hypothesis, which essentially states that all markets are perfect and equal at processing information. Orrell in this chapter suggests that this is completely incorrect and that no market is perfect at all, that we all process information differently at different speeds and that there's always a different supply of information or a different amount of information that each market and each person in the market will have. And this leads into the idea of asymmetric information and asymmetric knowledge, which results in an unfair and unequal society, rather than what has been suggested, which is a perfectly equal and fair society. So while Orrell speaks about how the markets are unfair, he also briefly mentions in this chapter why they are so unstable and volatile. He speaks a lot more about the volatility of markets in previous chapters, so if you'd like to hear more about it, then you can go and watch past videos. They'll be, I think, linked up here or in the description below. But essentially, a condensed reason as to why the market is so volatile is because it's based on mathematical equations and mathematical predictions, when economics is truly a social science. It is based on human emotions and those cannot be predicted, and all the markets are dependent on emotions and how humans are feeling, and therefore when people follow these predictions and rely on these predictions, it results in a lot of crashes or bubbles, for example, or herd mentality, when lots of people are buying into a stock or share or a business, and these bubbles inflate and then they eventually pop and it results in crashes. And this is looked into a lot more detail in the past chapters, but this Orrell just brings it up saying that the economy, while it is unfair, it's also incredibly unstable, and this can result in a much larger divide between the rich and the rest of the economy. Orrell also starts talking about how the economy is unfair due to the fact that the rich will always get richer for the most part. So a study was actually done where it was a simulation, and if each person gets $100 to invest in the stock market that is quite volatile but doesn't give high returns, whatever happens, the people that end up having the most money at the end of the next year will have more money at the end of the next year, and your wealth accumulates and it grows and it'll get passed on to the next generation and the next and the next. So if you're born into money, then you automatically have an unfair advantage over a person who has less money than you, say. And this is just one reason that the markets aren't perfect. Another reason is that during economic crashes, the wealthy will be less affected than the rest of the economy. Well, the incredibly wealthy will be affected less than the rest of the economy. Because, for example, during the 2008 financial crisis, when all the banks got dissolved and there were thousands and thousands of people losing money, it was the average person who was deeply affected by this crash, rather than the incredibly wealthy, who, while yes, they may have been affected, would not have been on that same level that people who have money but not incredible amounts do. There was also another person who looked at how power and wealth were correlated, and it displayed, unsurprisingly, that the more powerful you are, the more money you have. And in the book, there's actually a chart showing how the distribution of wealth looks since 2000, I think. But basically it says that around 1% of the world's population controls 40% of the world's assets. And this again displays how the economy then becomes unfair, because these small amount of people control so much of the world's assets and the rest of the world has relatively little control. So while there is no specific formula or direct way to help improve circulation and improve the fairness of society, Orrell suggests 3 main ways that we could try and help improve the economy. The first way was progressive taxation, so taxing in a way that helps redistribute the wealth and make it so that the difference between the incredibly wealthy and the rest of the economy isn't so drastic. Another way he suggested was through wage controls, and an example of this was in 2009 when President Obama imposed a wage cap on bailed out bank bosses of $500,000. And so an example of this prevents people becoming incredibly wealthy, but this is just one example of different ways that we could help control wages and prevent people becoming ridiculously wealthy. A third way was through company structure and looking at how CEOs get paid and different types of companies, possibly encouraging more non-profit companies like charities, for example, and this could help benefit society as a whole rather than just being focused on profit and money. There was also a fourth point that he came up with, which was the social policy. And so looking at this would mean looking at things like the education system. If everybody has an equal education, they all have an equal chance at really making their way in life and really doing well and having the opportunity to have a much higher salary and much higher wages, rather than if you put at a disadvantage because you haven't had a proper education due to the public schools or where you live or where you were born. And having a social policy like that could really help improve a nation as a whole. So in conclusion, Orwell argues that the economy isn't a stable, predictable and fair one, but rather that it is volatile and unpredictable, and it is definitely unfair. He suggests different ways that we could help the economy become more fair, but says that we're going to need much more than more mathematical complicated models. We actually need people to start implementing policies and helping distribute the wealth through the economy and make sure that asymmetric information decreases so that people can live in a more fair economy. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope that you enjoyed it, and if you have anything you'd like to add or any questions, please do so down in the comments. This is the 7th chapter of a 10-chapter book, I think, so I will be coming out with 3 more chapters in the following weeks, and if you would be interested in watching any of the previous chapters or learning more about this book, you can go onto my channel, or I've linked the book down in the description below. Thank you so much for watching.